An elven warrior trapped on modern-day Earth. Two friends with different destinies meet at a magical school. These are some of the stories we at Electric Lips Comics are working on. You can get your copies of both The Mana Chronicles and Tales of Mithril at elpmerch.com. Support independent creators, explore the merch featuring exciting ELP Comics art with a wide range of designs. Electric Lips Comics. Imagination electrified.
Welcome to the Mostly Pod Out at Night. Mostly, I am Graver, joined by my co-host Salem.
Hello.
This is episode 127 of our weekly All Things Forward podcast. This week, we are catching up for some franchises that we've covered before, but now have new entries. That's why we've been doing this long enough that we have episodes missing from our entire franchise run. So
I could have swore we did an episode like this before. Maybe we just talked about it and never did it. I could have swore we did. I literally searched through all the archives and it's not there. So apparently we did not. So
yeah,
this is the first time.
Yeah, so it's interesting that we're actually to that point, but it's I'm glad because we were wrapping all these things together for this and cleansing our holiday palette between Christmas themed 4 episodes. And I agree. I think we should make this a new holiday tradition just because we will run out of Christmas movies that are okay. And we'll have more like last week's episode.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying, like, Christmas themed horror movies, like, if you make me watch 12 of them, like, bad things are going to happen. So 2 episodes is fine as long as they're not back to back. I can deal with that.
Yeah. As we discussed last time, it's just because we thought we were scraping the barrel and we weren't, but still that we don't want November to be this bright gem on the two sides of a shit sandwich with
dude, I was like looking for more holiday movies. There's like okay movies that I would be like, oh, that sounds interesting. Like there's a lot of them out there. I don't know where you scrape these fucking movies
I don't know.
Do you get a list of horror holiday movies, rate them by rating, and then start at the bottom? Like that's what it feels like is happening.
I made this list months ago, so I have no idea.
I'm teasing you.
No idea. But I think this was a good palate cleanser and a good wrap up. As I agree, I think a holiday theme, just because there are things throughout the year that we miss, and to help prepare ourselves for our best of and worst of for the previous year, our first episode, it's a good way to make sure we watch all this stuff. Because let's face it, you and I have been cramming everything 2024 that we didn't cover on our show in these last couple of weeks. So
yeah. Well, yeah, the ones that I'm not going to watch all of them. I will take your word for some of these that I have not seen. I think I've seen a few that you haven't seen. But I mean, nothing. I don't think anything that I've seen is going to change your mind, and I'm pretty sure the ones you watched, are not going to change my mind.
So. Oh, they'll change your mind. They'll be in the bottom 5.
Well, yeah, I don't care. My bottom 5 is already there. It doesn't matter if there's any more in there. I've already been tortured.
Exactly. But yeah, our wrap up episodes is we have Maxine, which this is all 2024 stuff.
Right, which I know we did X before. I don't think we did. I think Pearl was it just in the wrap up, or did we do an actual?
We did not do an actual episode.
That's what I think we were going to, and I think me and you just both wanted to avoid watching Pearl again.
Yes, and we were going to have yes, because
essentially
what happened was X and Pearl, because it came out the same year. We talked about them already in our best of and worst of, because X was in the best of, Pearl was in the worst of by far.
I could have swore we did an actual review of X. It was with some other movies, and then I think Pearl just came up in the year end.
Yeah, it's possible, but yeah, we did discuss them. And let's face it, we're not going to watch fucking Pearl.
Yeah, again. I don't want to either. No. I'm fine with this.
No. Like I said, then Alien Romulus, which I think was within our first 5 episodes, we did the Alien franchise.
Now I've seen it a total of I don't know what 4.75 times.
Exactly.
Something.
And then VHS Beyond, because that was one of our first Halloween ones too that we did as a franchise.
Yeah.
And then last year, we did all the spin-offs and the movies that are made from other segments. So those are our recaps. We'll be briefly, shorter on the VHS Beyond just because we're going to stick to our original format for it. But let's start with Maxine, which I believe came out August of 2024. Chronologically, this was the first one. But essentially, it's now set in the 80s. And by God, do you know it's the 80s?
Hell yeah.
Very apparent.
Yes.
With the fashion, the
Well,
cocaine, the music.
I will say this. It is set in 1985.
Mhm.
And 1985 fashion, although not great, is not as bad as late 80s fashion. Late 80s fashion is even worse because that's when we get into the giant shoulder pads and the stirrup pants and like everything starts falling apart at the seams. But like 85 is like peak 80s. Like when you think of 80s, the 85 is pretty much what you're thinking.
New Coke.
Right. Yeah. Although it was like the year. I mean, there's always like one year in every decade that like defines it. 85 is the definition for sure.
Mm-hmm. So we are catching up with Maxine as she is still in the adult movie industry, but she's trying to break out. We're kind of following her on making and getting a part in a horror movie, right? And which was a sequel to a movie. Why can't I think the name of the movie off the top of my head?
Puritan.
The Puritan #2, which was a prequel, I believe.
I don't know. I don't think they said when the original one was set. I think the original one was set in like the witch trial age.
Right. Yeah, but it's now a modern take of it. Like,
yeah, so it's like a modern take. They said like I think it's supposed to be set in like the 50s.
Mm-hmm.
So like the character is supposed to be like a 50s housewife, but there's a flashback scene back to the original Puritan. That's what I got out of it. We don't get any more than that, I don't think.
Yeah, and we're kind of going with her to her audition, or her casting, and she's like, okay, you used to work in adult films. Great, I want to move past that. Awesome. Read your part, and she does. All right, cool. Now show us your boobs.
Well, yeah, it's a horror movie,
right?
It's a horror movie in the 80s. It's expected.
Oh yeah, TNA galore, and she seems to be absolutely okay with it because she did adult movies.
Well, yeah. Also, she nails that audition. Like she does an amazing job.
I would argue she was more prepared for that role than anyone else would be for the entire movie. I think she just really wants to get that role so bad that she took her character that she is playing to a different way. She read it her own way, which is good, right? You always have the same people that are, the casting agents, directors, like, or even writers go, this is how I wrote it. This is how I want it. If you don't do it, can't give it to you. But she nails it. She tells all the other girls in the hall, you should just leave. I fucking nailed it.
This is true. That was fact.
Yeah. Yes. So, kind of get into her personal life. She has a friend that works at a VHS store. I guess he owns.
He does.
Yeah. And he is like he has like the video nasty section, right, where it's just copies of VHSs. And he kind of has like the movie guru. We have her agent played by Giancarlo Esposito with an amazing wig. And she has some friends that she still does like adult movies and stripping just to make ends meet. And then we eventually run into Kevin Bacon's character, who is sending like, he's working for someone that we only see like the glove hands, and is sending cryptic stuff like, we know what you did. Here's like the police records from Texas where X takes place. She's like, oh, I thought I erased all that. No one knew it was me. and Kevin Bacon is potentially playing the private eye, who is just doing what he's told, but enjoying it to say the least. And as we're going through Maxine's world, she does get the part. She goes, starts getting head casting, which we'll get to that head casting scene later. And her kind of just preparing for the role. And all of this is set in LA, Hollywood, during the height of the Night Stalker, which is the background of everything, the news, the reason why no one wants to go out at night by themselves, because that plays into a part where she's kind of going through seedy LA, and she eventually gets down in the alleyway and is like, oh, this guy's dressed as was it Charlie Chaplin?
Oh, he was Buster Keaton.
Buster Keaton. And she's like, oh, you don't want to fuck me. She's like, no, I do. And then gets a gun, because she has a gun, he only has a knife, makes him get naked, and then just stomps his balls to goo.
Yes.
Yes. Meanwhile, her friends like, hey, we really should go to this really powerful executive's house. We're going to do these great things. She's like, no, I don't want to do that. I have to work for a living. I have to do all these things, just trying to make it in the entertainment world and get out of porno. Eventually, her friend ends up on the news because she's dead. And, they had a conversation like, oh, the only reason why you knew these women from the Black Dahlia murders is because of the Black Dahlia. I would say that's pretty accurate.
Elizabeth Short?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it is, because she was only in a couple of things. She would have been no one if not for the Black Dahlia, for sure.
Yeah. So taking real inspiration from the real world stuff in this movie, and you gotta applaud Ty West for that. I do. As the backdrop for everything. Eventually, more murders. Like I said, her friend ends up dead. She gets questioned by the detectives that are there. Like, well, you knew her. Yeah. Is there anything you want to tell us? No, not really.
Well, she doesn't. She says she doesn't talk to cops,
right?
Because cops try to bust porn stuff all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's kind of an unspoken thing that porn people don't talk to cops because they'll use it against you.
Yeah. So anyway, as I said, she keeps getting followed by Kevin Bacon. She makes it through the Hollywood, the back lot, with the Psycho house, probably just prepping for Psycho 2 that just was shot at that point.
Yeah, well, yeah, the director mentions that they just filmed the sequel a couple years ago.
Yeah. So I think the sequel came out in 1984 or something like that. I think it was 24 years or something like that between them. Anyway, she's kind of followed by Kevin Bacon, and eventually she does stab him in the face a few times as he's following her with her keys, which good for her. He's taking it way too personally, but he's just becoming more and more a problem. She does talk to her agent about that. He's like, don't worry, I'll take care of it. And she's talking to her friend, and she goes and realizes there's more stuff being mailed to her. She had met Kevin Bacon for lunch. He kind of laid it all down. What's going to happen? Come clean now. I won't have to rat you out. She's like, nope, but don't know what you're talking about. Anyway, her friend owns the video store gets murdered, brutally murdered, I would say.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, now there's someone else in your life that was murdered, and with the pentagram branded on him and slashed up just like the other bodies they found. Like, all right, something is clearly wrong here. You have to tell us. Nope. Don't really want to do that. So eventually, she meets up with Kevin Bacon, and he is drugged, right? He's drugged.
No, he just gets hit in the back of the head with a bat.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So, yeah. And then he gets to meet Maxine, their friend with a dog, her agent, and they car crush her. And he gets crushed to death because her agent took care of her. All right, cool.
Well, in his defense, he still did not give up who his employer was.
Correct.
So he took that to his grave. So, yeah, he might be a piece of shit, but at least he's loyal.
Right. Right. And there's a lot of stuff at the movie set going back and forth, like, hey, get, the director telling her, get your shit together. We have to make this together, right? Her second feature film or first feature film is going to be the sequel to a horror movie, and she wants to be taken seriously as a woman in the 80s making horror movies. Fair. So eventually she ends up going to, like, oh, I'm piecing all these things together, and here's the address that Kevin Bacon character had given her to go meet whoever this employer is, because he wants to meet. She goes there, and lo and behold, we find out that it's her dad. Her dad has been going around killing people and leaving messages for Maxine, because we learned, kind of in X, that she was the daughter of a preacher, like one of those portable tent preachers, if you will.
That old time religion.
Yeah. It's like, I'm just trying to, cleanse Hollywood from all the sinners, leading into the satanic panic, all this stuff. Anyway, she's like, hey, we're going to take care of this, Maxine. I'm going to free you. We're going to film it. We're making our own movies, make sure people can't sin in this town while committing sins. Sure. Anyway, the cops show up, and they have a shootout with the followers that are there following her dad. She gets freed, eventually meets up with her dad, and, she kills him. And she then wakes up, like, oh, she's this hero. She is across the news. She's a survivor, and all this fame and fortune that came from it. And then she snaps back to right before she's there standing with her dad again, about to kill him. She still kills him. Press does not a lot. She doesn't get the fame and fortune and glory that she had in her head, but she does make the Puritan 2. End of movie.
Well, she might get that. We don't know.
Correct. I don't think I missed anything major in there.
Nah, not really.
So, and we'll go into first thoughts. My first thoughts really was, God damn, this is so much better than Pearl.
Like I said, dude, like I watched X. I did not like Pearl, and I was fascinated. I originally did not give a shit about Maxine at all. But then when I heard that it was going to be set like in the 80s and it was going to be set in like Hollywood in the 80s, and I'm like, okay, I'll have to watch it. I'll have to see how it is.
Yeah.
But I was still like, I'm not going to pay for it. I'm not going to go. Well, I mean, like, I'm not going to go to the theater to watch it.
Right.
But that watch it, I was pleasantly surprised. I think it's great. I think it's right up there with X. I really do. I think it's just about as good.
Yeah. I mean, that, as you said, you're right. Pearl left such a bad taste in our mouths. We're just going, we cannot go to the theater to see this again. We have realized that for a couple franchises that we're not going to go to the theater again to see them.
Yeah.
Winnie People and Honey too. I'm looking at you and your universe.
Yeah, fuck that, dude. Like I said, man, I'm not gonna get into it, but I just one statement is I was just upset that the first one was like, for what it was better than it should have been in my mind. A lot of people kind of shit on it, but I don't think a lot of that was fair. It is what it is, right? I mean, it's a horror movie based on Winnie the Pooh. It is what it is. It's not going to be a great film, but it was better than it should have been. The second one is what everyone thought it was going to be. Just absolute shit.
Yeah.
And it deserves it. And I'm not going to pay big money for that nonsense.
No, we're going to be a little bit more, unless we're able to see these movies with screeners, sure, but we're not going to waste all our money on all the horror movies. We're going to be a little bit more picky to what we go to the theaters to go see.
Yeah.
Like I said, that being said, though, like I said, Maxine, yeah, I agree. We both were like, okay, we've been, once bitten, twice shy here with this. But yeah, Maxine, I think, really redeems the trilogy, especially as an end cap. Maybe setting up a legacy sequel. We don't know at this point in time. I'll go first kind of with my highlights here. As we kind of talked about it, the music is fantastic in this movie. I think Ty West really nailed the 70s exploitation with Axe, and he nails the 80s with the music, with the visuals. It looks like a gritty 80s straight to VHS, video nasty. Even with the visuals as well, it felt like a giallo movie. It very bright colors, especially reds at the third act. It felt very Argento, and I appreciate it for that. I think he nailed that look too. I think it's really interesting to make use of the backlot, right? It's almost meta in a way, and we're making a movie about making a movie. And be able to tie in the backlot idea, right? And not a slap you over the face, haha, I can quote Texas Chainsaw Massacre better than you type bullshit that we see in a lot of these movies. It was just a background for the movie and not calling it out heavy-handedly. I think Mia Goth did, honestly, better in this than X.
Yeah, I agree. I think she really did a great. Like I said, this movie, it kind of surprised me. I didn't expect. I expected nothing. I expected like the '80s version of Pearl, and I was like prepared to be let down. And this movie was a surprising enjoyment. I was surprised at how much I enjoyed it.
Yeah. And then I think so Mia Goth and honestly Kevin Bacon, I think he nailed it too. We felt like he was a sleazy slime ball.
It's from Louisiana.
For Louisiana, yes. But he nailed it. Like, he doesn't get to play the villain often enough. So I think he was great in this too. Those are my highlights. How about yours?
Number one is the cast. I thought the cast did great. I mean, there's a ton of people in this movie. A ton of people.
Yes.
Like Sophie Thatcher is essentially doing a cameo.
Yep.
Like, her role is very small. She's only in like 2 scenes. And one scene she's like in the background and doesn't even talk.
Yep.
Which is very interesting considering how big she is now, right? And was before that movie. So, that's interesting. I mean, like Toby Huss shows up for like one scene. He says like one line, and that's it. And Toby Huss is like, what? Like Bobby Cannavale like shows up. He's the cop. He's in like what 3 scenes, maybe
4.
Yeah, I mean, like it's crazy. I mean, obviously Kevin Bacon's in a lot. Giancarlo Esposito is in a lot. But there's so many other people that just casual cameos of like pretty big name people just floating around. It was. I don't know her, but I guess one of the girls that she worked with that went to the party is like some kind of pop person. I don't.
Sure.
I don't follow the pop stuff, so I don't know who it was or why, but one of them is. It's just a lot of interesting cast choices that I really enjoyed. I think everybody did a great job. There's really nobody I can call out. I think her dad is pretty cheesy, but I think he's supposed to be. So I don't think
he's on my. We'll get to him on my point.
Yeah, he's on mine too. I got some things to say, but I'll keep that on the other side. But like you said, the 80s vibe was pretty nailed. I mean, like they have like the real news reports, from that time period. Like even like the title cards, are like popping up, and they got like the video kind of scroll to them and the popping in and stuff. And they nailed the vibe totally. I mean, the style, again, it's 85 style. A lot of people like, oh, it's 80s, and they just mix all 80s together, which is not true. The late 80s are horrible. That look is horrible, but I don't like that look. That's where the big hair was always big in the 80s, right? But like at the end of the 80s, it was like giant hair.
Oh yeah.
And it came into the late 80s, early 90s, like there's the giant hair, like huge, wave hair came in. And in 85, it was big hair, but it wasn't ridiculous yet. So they had just moved past the feathers of the 70s and hadn't quite hit the big hair of the late 80s. And it's a perfect time, perfect place to set it. I like that a lot. The video store was pretty cool. I think I was just nostalgic for an old VHS video store.
Yes.
That's what, if I had a time machine, that's what I would do. I would go back in time in like 1980 and open up a video store.
I mean, let's face it. If I had the room with my laserdisc collection, I'd make a rental store out of my laserdiscs.
Yeah, but like seriously, like that would be a fantastic like time to be around and to have that job. That would be great.
And to get to see all the obscure shit he had on there to get those video nasties. Yeah,
right. Yeah, and the whole Night Stalker backdrop I thought was pretty cool. Because I mean that was crazy, and I love how the Night Stalker, the real life happened, the ending happened. Like, as in like a bunch of people in a town like saw him and literally like beat the crap out of him and held him down until the police got there.
What an ending for the Night Stalker.
Right. Like, this is a guy who's like literally stalking and killing people at night, like literally gets like neighborhood watched. And beaten up and held down before the cops can come and arrest him. Like, what a crazy ending to that story. Obviously, this was like after they put his picture out and everything,
right?
And they actually found out who he was. But up to that point, it was everybody was terrified,
right?
And that's when this movie is set. Like literally, the ending is they show that Night Stalker getting arrested.
Yep.
But yeah, it was like a citizen's arrest, which is just a crazy story. But that's it for me. Let me go to my low points. That ball stomp, man. Wow.
On my list.
Holy Christ. I mean, she's wearing like stiletto heels, and it punctures straight through that ball sack, and
it pops.
It hurts. It hurts me watching. It was very graphic. The whole the satanic panic thing, I mean the Night Stalker literally was like putting fucking satanic symbols and shit around. He was one of the very few people that actually was doing that. I know the cops tried to say like everybody was. I was just a side note here. I was watching Unsolved Mysteries earlier. And Unsolved Mysteries, they were like, oh, David Berkowitz was in a satanic cult. Like, God, everybody was in a satanic cult. They were trying to say that he was like the cult did it and not him or some crazy.
Well, if you listen to the news in the 80s, there was at least 10,000 satanic cults in the country.
Yeah, it's like all these cops are like, oh, satanic cults are killing all these children and dogs. Like, okay, where are they fucking coming from? Anyway, beyond that, I know we've talked about satanic panic a lot, but yeah, I would say the preacher dad, right? The preacher dad to me is a great character. I mean, he's a bad guy. That's why he's on this low list here. But it's a great character because the way that they presented him in the movie, he really shows that he has been corrupted just as much as Maxine has. Like, he's literally wearing like bronzer makeup. I mean, it's like obviously bronzer makeup. Like, he's becoming like this twisted, weird version of Maxine, right? Like just being just as, made up and whatever, she's not trying to sell the Jesus, thing, but he is.
I would say he's worse than her.
Well, yeah, because he's murdering people. Yeah, but he's like murdering people that he thinks are like bad influences on her or whatever.
Unclean.
Then branding them as like satanic. It's very bizarre, but I think the way that they present him is perfect. He's like the perfect kind of like counter to her. Yeah, I thought that was really good. But yeah, and his kind of theatrical approach is the same as like her being acting in the film, and then like his like wearing makeup and being all dramatic and like, oh, everything's evil, to where she is just kind of like, whatever, I'm doing what I want to do and I want to be famous. Yep. I think it's all just like a really good counterpoint. I thought that was great. That's all I got. What do you got?
Oh yeah, definitely ball smashing, easily number one. Number two, once again, satanic panic. I don't know. I felt very differently about the dad. I mean, obviously, it was all intentional, right? But he was like literally chewing the scenery, acting wise.
Yeah, and I think that's on purpose. Because
Yeah.
I mean, how good everybody else did, he's the only one that's being that cheesy, goofy thing, and I think he's really just putting his preacher vibe onto somebody trying to like be a slasher, right? And it's kind of like combining all those things together, and he equals that cheesiness that he ends up being.
Right. I don't like that. It felt just odd in the movie. Like I said, I know that's the 80s feel, because let's face it, that is a Giallo movie to no end. I think Argento, like the last scenes, like, let's face it, New York Ripper with the duck talking, it's just as cheesy.
Yeah.
Um, you know,
Well, yeah, it's
may,
just like in Friday the 13th, where it ends up being fucking Jason's mom.
yeah,
It's just as cheesy. All of these reveals were just as cheesy in the 80s.
oh yeah, but yeah, he felt like he was in a different movie.
Yeah, and again, I think that's he was just the counterpoint to her. She
Mhm.
was like the ultimate in street survival, slash success story. And then he's like the perfect counterpoint, like trying to tear her down for how she got there and trying to bring her back to being daddy's little girl when he's like literally committing murder to do so.
Oh, dozens at least, my guess is.
Right.
And maybe my last low point is maybe in the 80s the head casting technology of putting straws into your mouth and nose so you're able to breathe didn't exist. I felt I mean, you're supposed to be claustrophobic, and as someone that wants to do something like that, like, I would never want to do it the way they did it in this movie.
I
Like,
would know. Okay, I would never do that because like you can't do that and then leave the room.
no.
Like no, like I could be fucking dead by the time you come back. Like that's
Yeah.
not cool.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it like, where, like, they cover her mouth and her nose. Like, where are the holes? Like, you need a breathing hole, something. But it just felt uncomfortable for me to think like, okay, it's something I want to do, but I'm like, oh man, if someone just leaves the room like that, no, I wouldn't do it. All right, those are all my low points. Or out of this week, because this is a wrap episode, I thought nicely tied bows as a way to end these franchises for now. Out of 10. So Salem, how many nicely tied bows out of 10 do you give Maxine?
Maxine, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it quite a bit. So I will give it 8.25 nicely tied bows out of 10.
Yeah, like I said, I think, I'd have to look at our average now for this trilogy. I'm pretty sure we gave 9 or higher for X for both of us. I didn't enjoy this as much as X, but it's still really high up there. So I will give this 8 nicely tied bows out of 10. Easily, a million times better than Pearl. It's just a bookend of a shit sandwich that is Pearl. This trilogy is. So I'd be interested to see if they ever do a quote legacy version where they could set it in present day, and Maxine's now the person that did like a horror movie and now has to go to cons to make a living.
I think it would be interesting. Well, I mean, because we went 70s, 80s, it's going to be 90s. So if they do a sequel, it's going to be 90s. I don't know. I mean, what film kind of trend? What horror film trend of the 90s would you like to see it?
Oh, it'll be PG-13
No,
easily.
PG-13 was late 90s, early 2000s.
And then it's going to be bad CGI.
Okay, well, we'll have to. I'm sure there's a genre that we'll find in there that'll be
Yes.
End of the world. That's what I want to see.
Ooh,
It should
yeah.
it should be an end of the world because there was a lot of those in the 90s. It should be one of those.
There you
We'll
go.
see. We'll see how it goes.
All right. Well, we'll wait for that eagerly from Ty West. But Salem, take us through Alien Romulus.
Okay, I'm not gonna get too verbose here, but essentially we are in this. The time period is between Alien and Aliens.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like a good 50 years of play in there. And I know there's been other things that have happened in between that time period, but essentially we're just set in between there. So the company, of course, has gone to the crash site and retrieved the alien that was knocked out of the airlock in Alien. It had somehow made a cocoon
Hmm.
around itself, and so they retrieved the cocoon, brought it back, cut it out of the cocoon, and then made a big, super secret science station to like, breed and experiment on the aliens, as the company always does.
As
That's
Whaley Atomics. Go Whaley
that's
Atomics.
what they do. That's all of these movies end up being Whaley Johnny doing bad things with aliens, and then it gets out of hand. That's just the franchise. That's how it goes. So anyway, so we're kind of pushed down to a colony where we have our character Rain and her quote unquote brother Andy the android. Her parents have died because they were working in the mines, which is a very dangerous job. They died, so she has now finished her hours, and she's going to be traveling away. She's fulfilled her contract with the company. She's going to go to a different colony that has a son that she can live peacefully on. So
Mm.
she goes to the company office, and of course the company, being the company, says, "Oh nope, you got to work twice as many hours. See you in 5 years." So obviously she's upset. She gets a job offer from her, I guess, ex-boyfriend and his like salvage crew. Um, we don't really get much more information than that. But anyway, she goes there. They tell her about, hey, we found this big ship up in orbit. Nobody's doing anything with it. It's got some cryopods in it. We can all just like jump in the cryopods and just sleep our way to this like magical colony that has a sun that they
Yes.
can see. So they're like, okay, yeah, let's go do that. And she's like, okay, well, why are you talking to me? Like, oh, we need your android because he can talk to the computer and he can open the doors and get us in. Okay, sure, let's do that. So they go up to the space station. Andy gets him in. They go in. It's kind of derelict, like the gravity's turning on and off. The air isn't really breathable. They get inside. They turn the power on. And then they find the cryopods, and they're functional, but they don't have enough cold juice to let them sleep the whole. It's going to take them 9 years to get there. They only have 3 years. So they go and looking for more cold juice. They find a place that has cold juice. As they're taking out the cold juice, they break the cold juice system, which thaws out all of the face huggers that were in that room.
I'd say 30 of them.
Yeah, a lot. So yeah, there's they kind of fighting back and forth because when they do that, they get locked in that room.
Mm-hmm.
So Rain and is on the other side. She manages to get the kind of whatever boot disk from the other android, the broken android that's out there, gives it to Andy. Andy gets upgraded, but it takes him a minute while they're chasing face huggers around in the water.
What?
There's something in the water. So they eventually get out of there. Andy's now upgraded. The one girl gets impregnated by the face hugger. Right? They get away. Everybody gets away, but one girl gets impregnated.
Mm-hmm.
The one guy, the water guy, he decides, who's the boyfriend of that girl. They're all like, oh, she's been like, she's got an embryo in her. We got to like quarantine her, like, but and they're like, no, we're fine. And they like lock everybody out and then go to the ship to try to escape. Locking everybody else out, then we kind of have like two systems there. Of course, um, the one girl was sorry. I guess we didn't say the one girl, the pregnant girl, was back on the ship because she didn't feel good because she had the pregnant sickness. So they go back. The alien hatches out of the one girl, kills her, ends up killing the other guy after it hatches, and he finds it in the ship. And then the pregnant girl ends up escaping out of the ship. In the process of all that happening, the ship crashes into the hangar bay. It's a convenient place to crash.
Yeah.
So they all decide, yeah, we need to get to that ship so we can get the hell out of here, right? Because things are looking very bad. We need to get out of here. So they have to do like a whole change your temperature to sneak past the face hugger thingamajibbers. They do all that. And essentially we get to the point where they find the pregnant girl who is, at this point it's Rain, her ex-boyfriend, and the ex-boyfriend's sister is the pregnant girl, just so we know that. So it's Rain, Andy the android, ex-boyfriend, and then the pregnant girl. Pregnant girl's on the other side of the door. They're like, "Oh, open the door, let her in." And Andy's like, "No, I can't. Why not?" He's like, well, "Look out there." And you see the alien just wait.
Yep.
It's just waiting for that door to open. He's using her as bait. So they don't open the door. That girl ends up getting like taken away to be, whatever.
Oh, they don't
cocoon.
know. They assume dead.
Yeah. Well, yeah, she gets taken away. They don't know.
Yeah.
So they decide they're trying to escape through a different way. They end up walking right into the nest of the aliens as they're trying to escape. Andy gets beat up. They end up escaping on the elevator. They end up meeting up with the pregnant girl again, but she's like severely injured, and then the ex-boyfriend dies.
Yep.
So now it's just Rain, the pregnant girl, and Andy the android. Andy the android is down for the count, so Rain decides she's going to go back to get Andy and take this evil disc out of his head, so he becomes good old Andy again and not the company android. And then she says, "Here is this magic juice that the I guess we didn't mention. The other android is the copy of Ash from Aliens, only his name is Rook instead of Bishop."
Which wasn't his name, but yes.
Right. So he's like, "You go get the alien juice that we were doing experiments with, because that's the only thing that's important. And you go get that stuff and I'll get you guys out of here alive."
Mm-hmm.
So they had that stuff. They give that to the pregnant girl, like, "Get this back to the ship. I'm going to go back and get Andy." So she goes back to get Andy. The pregnant girl immediately pulls one out and goes, "Hey, I'm not feeling very good. I'm just going to inject myself with this."
Yes, with we'll say it's the black goo from Prometheus.
Right. Yeah. It's essentially, yeah. They've essentially like, whatever, taken it out of the alien and made the,
Mm-hmm.
good juice, right? Good alien juice, which they think that's going to do all kinds of crazy things, but it ends up doing horrible things anyway. So they go back, they get Andy, they go back to the ship, and then the girl ends up giving birth to a monster baby. The monster baby ends up becoming what they call the offspring, which is terrifying. It's like
He looks like a mix between what do they call it in Resurrection, the child,
the architect.
the one that Ripley gives birth to, essentially. That's part human.
Oh, well, it's like a mixture of that and the
engineer.
Yeah, whatever, the engineer, whatever the fuck. Yeah, so it's like a mixture of those. It's like super tall. It's got like alien tubes coming out of its back and shit. Anyway, they back and forth, whatever. She ends up knocking it into the cargo bay, releasing the cargo bay. It dies. Pregnant girl dies in this process. So now it's just Rain and Andy the android, who's been severely injured.
Mm-hmm.
And they're apparently going to try to go to the magical sun colony,
even though they don't like androids.
Even though they don't like androids.
Yep.
But they're going to try anyway. So yeah, everybody dies except for Rain and Andy the android.
Yep.
That's it.
I mean, I know we discussed this before on our show that we got to see it 1 3/4 time when it came out. I don't think we really discussed much outside of. We discussed a lot, obviously, outside the show. But what was your first thoughts on seeing this, even just the rewatch now that you've seen it 4 times in the past 5 months?
It's a good movie. I like it. There's things I don't like about it, which I will obviously talk about. But overall, I think it is good. I think it's a little bit more palatable than Prometheus and Covenant. I did not dislike those movies. I liked them. But I think it's a little bit more true to the earlier franchise than they were. but still trying to keep the spirit of Prometheus and Covenant with the juice.
Yes.
Right. So it's like it's basically trying to take pieces from all of the movies and then making its own path forward. And I think it did a pretty nice job doing that.
Let's call it the Mandalorian movie.
Okay. So like I think it would be a really cool sequel. I'm excited for the sequel to this. I really hope that Fede Alvarez does a sequel to this, because I think the sequel will be better.
Yes.
I will again, I'll go into why I think so, but I think it'll be fun, because like again, Aliens, the beginning is literally Ripley waking up, by herself years later, right?
Yep.
So I think it would be cool if, because she is going into cryosleep to go to this magical colony, if she just again gets fucking lost and wakes up some distance down the timeline, and kind of like how Aliens was. I think it would be fun to do that. It's kind of like another callback. We'll talk about callbacks later on.
Yeah,
we will talk about that. But again, I think the sequel to this, I think, would be better, because I think what Fede Alvarez was trying to prove with this film, he's already proven it. And I don't think he has to retread that ground. And so I really hope that moving forward, I hope he does another one, as I think that one will be much better than this one. But I did like it.
Yeah. For me, as you are the bigger Alien franchise fan than I am, as we know. I still enjoy them. I felt like this was a good return to form of the earlier Alien franchise. It is, based in horror, quite honestly. Definitely more than Resurrection or Covenant or Prometheus, I think. So I enjoyed it for that. There's people that were concerned, namely the wife, about, oh, this is Fede Alvarez. He makes disgusting, gross body horror movies. Knowing things, he's done like one that she's seen. And
well, Aliens, by its definition, is got degrees of body horror. It always has.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think this is an interesting way to put it in the middle. And there is no hint of Ripley. And you don't need it. It's just a different world setting, which is great. I think it'd be interesting if the colony they're going to is the colony that's in Aliens. And that's why the Aliens...
Hadley's Hope?
Yeah.
Well, no, they already have an explanation as to why the aliens ended up at Hadley's Hope.
I know. I'm just saying it'd be interesting if that's where they took it, but that's neither here nor there.
I don't know. That's too much. that's again. We'll talk about the callbacks later on. That's way too much of an excuse for that. We want to move away from that.
Yeah. So Sam, why don't you go with your highlights first?
Okay. I'll say the cast, I think, did a good job. I really like Kaylee Spaney. I don't. She literally this year was the first time I even figured out who she was. Like, she's apparently been in other things that I have seen and did not really notice her. She was in very small roles. I just didn't notice her at all. And earlier this year, I saw Civil War, and she did a great job in that. I was like, wow, like, where the hell has she been? Like, I've never seen her before.
Was she the new reporter?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, where the hell has she been? And then when I heard that she was going to be in Romulus, I'm like, okay, like, she did a good job in Civil War. I've hoped for it. Let's see where it goes. I thought she did fantastic. I thought the actor who played Andy the Android did a fantastic job. I mean, the way that he can switch between kind of goofy, dopey, glitchy Andy and to being no nonsense corporate drone is perfect. Like, he did an amazing job jumping between those two. But yeah, anyway, I thought everybody did a good job, especially call out those two. I think they really get. I mean, even though we don't see the colony too much, I really think they nail that colony dystopia. Right? It's like, like, oh yeah, the dream of a colony living on another planet. And you see like what it really is. It's horrible. It's
Mhm.
shit. You're stuck there. You can't leave. The company is in absolute control of your life, and it sucks. It's just like the old, mining working towns, in
Yeah,
the old days that they eventually got rid of. But yeah, go into space and the colonies where companies run the whole thing. Who's gonna fucking come and check, right?
no one.
It's an armpit in the middle of nowhere. Nobody gives a shit.
Mhm.
I thought the effects were great. I mean the aliens effects, the gore effects, the body effects were great. I mean the space effects, like like the planets and the rings of the planets and the spaceships and all that. I thought they did a fantastic job. Everything looked great. I can't even call out bad CGI that I noticed because I didn't see any. I thought it was pretty stellar all around.
Oh, they use a lot of practical effects too. Still,
Yeah, they did. I'm just saying, like, I didn't
Mhm.
notice any that were bad.
Yeah.
Well, the one minor thing we'll talk about that on the other side. And I also thought the Offspring. The Offspring was terrifying. The Offspring was a great kind of monster, right?
Mhm.
It was kind of the ultimate monster, right? Like we had the alien warrior drone for a while, but like the ultimate kind of villain here is the Offspring, which is fucking terrifying.
Right.
Um, and rightfully so. So I thought those were all great. That's all I got.
Yeah. Yeah. I said it felt really close to the original Alien. I think it was of all the horror aspects that exist in the movies on a horror scale, number two of the franchise. Alien being the most horror centric, I would say. Like I said that because, like I said, it makes it easily in my top three of the franchise. It seems to be it's Alien, Aliens, and the Alien Romulus top three for me by far. The practical effects really enjoyed. They got the freakishly tall dude, like he's like almost 8 feet tall in real life. And they're just kind of continuing that trend of getting really tall people to play these characters, in a suit with some CGI enhancements and stuff like that. But like it was terrifying. It really felt like um a engineer mixed with a human mixed with a xenomorph, and it looks hands down better than the offspring that happened in Alien Resurrection. So I enjoyed it. Yeah, like I said, the alien and having the alien baby. You talk about stuff that they've never seen before. Someone giving birth like that to that creature is terrifying. And then, the essentially being lactated to death by the baby. Like that hits people that are affected by like mothers and babies in horror movies dying. That I know that hit the wife hard. She goes, "Holy shit." That's terrifying. Um yeah, I think it's just an overall put together movie that was felt right at home, and Fede Alvarez proved himself, as you said. I agree. I can't wait to see what he does next with this. Um, I'll go into my low points. Let's call it what it is. Stay away from her, you bitch. I felt that line was unnecessary in this movie.
Well, it's not only that line; it's a lot of lines. I mean,
Yes.
there's probably like I lost count. Like I was trying to keep count. I honestly lost count. It's more than five.
Yes.
More than five classic lines resaid in this film
Mm-hmm.
to show the callback. Like I don't think that's necessary.
No.
I get like having a callback or two, as kind of like a wink to the the franchise, people that know it, but like that many is unnecessary.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, it felt out of place with Andy. Like it felt wrong.
Well, it's like it's like multiple line. It's like, oh, I prefer the term artificial person myself, right? Okay, there's another fucking line.
Yeah.
It's like every fucking scene has like a fucking goofy, weird callback. It was too much. It was unnecessary.
Right. And speaking of things that are unnecessary in callbacks, I don't think they should have redone the likeness of Ian Holmes for Rook.
I agree.
First off, Rook wasn't in that. I understand Bishop and naming him Rook would make sense if it was fucking Lance Hendrickson
Right.
Sure. His name is Ash. Has nothing to do with Rook or Bishop in the chess pieces that they are clearly naming for and these things. I felt like we could have done with Lance Hendrick instead, who is alive, who didn't die like 15 years ago. We should have had Lance instead of this CG monstrosity that was Ian Holm's character.
Yeah, because not only did they have like Ian Holm there, but they like de-aged him, so it had
Right.
this really like uncanny valley look to it.
Right. Yeah, it felt wrong. And then I personally feel that it added a piece of alien lore that kind of ruins the win that Ripley had in the first Alien, to the point that she didn't even kill the alien, and now it can essentially become a meteor in space. I don't.
Well, it's canon that the aliens can survive in space. That is canon
From the comics.
From a bunch of things.
Yeah.
But yeah, they can survive in space. Obviously, they have no form of locomotion in space, but they
Right.
can survive in the deep, like in the vacuum of space. They survive. They don't explode.
It didn't need to be the alien from the Alien movie, the first one. It could have been another alien. Quite honestly,
Well,
I think it would have been better
at that
without
point in time. That was the only one they knew of.
it. Yeah. But other than that, that's. Well, and let's face it, I felt like the entire freaking crew were a bunch of idiots.
Well, yeah. I mean, they're kids.
Yeah.
That's the thing. They're all kids. I mean, like the ex-boyfriend was probably the oldest, and he was like 23,
Something like that.
you know.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the oldest one. Like they were all children upon that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Young adults. So yeah, of course they're gonna be fucking goofy and fucked up and making bad decisions because they're essentially kids.
Yeah. And then injecting yourself with that unknown liquid goo is.
Well,
dumb.
I mean, yeah. I mean, she at that point, I think she thought she was gonna die, and she thought it was gonna fix her.
Yeah.
Again, bad choice for sure.
So,
but again, she's sitting there with the baby. She doesn't want the baby to die. If she dies, she knows the baby dies, so she was trying to do anything to keep the baby alive. I get that. Just bad decision.
Yep. That's about all I got. What about you?
I mean, yeah, that's pretty much what I have. Is there's just too many callbacks. There's too many. It's like it's to the point of like, okay, I get it. You've seen the other movies. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to fucking do you don't need to have a fucking line in every fucking scene. Like, again, you have one or two as winks back to the franchise. I get that. You want to show that you've seen them and you understand them. I totally understand that. Not every goddamn scene, dude. Like, relax with it. I think he was just I really feels to me like he was like nervous about doing the franchise and he really wanted to do it justice, so he like really wanted to be like, hey guys, I really know this franchise, trust me, look, see, I know all the lines and stuff. Like,
yeah,
get it, dude. Like, you're making the fucking movie. Like, it doesn't matter if you've seen the rest of them, as long as it's a good movie, no one gives a shit. It was just too much. It was way too much. It was overload. Like, every scene, like, example, opening scene of the movie where, like, Rain and Andy are just eating, right? He comes up with a tray of fucking cornbread, just like in fucking Aliens. What's sitting on the fucking table? The fucking sippy bird thing that was on the fucking table. It's like every scene has a callback to the previous movies. Like, you don't need that many. You don't need that many. You need to calm the fuck down. You need to scale it back.
Well, it's interesting is that because he, in 2013, he did Evil Dead, and there was, and let's face it, most people call back Evil Dead franchise in their own movies way more than anything else. I would say he didn't do it then,
right? And I think because he felt more comfortable there. That's why I think he felt comfortable there. I think he felt like he earned that spot to do that, right? Like, he got Sam Raimi's blessing and everything. Sam Raimi was like a producer and everything. You know what I mean? Like, he was like part of it. Like, I don't think he felt out of place. working with Ridley Scott.
That'd be terrifying.
You know what I'm saying? Like there's Sam Raimi and then there's Ridley fucking Scott. You know, it's like, again, this is a guy who's literally made fucking an Evil Dead movie and then moved on to Alien Romulus.
Mm-hmm.
You know, trying to follow up 2 movies that Ridley Scott fucking made in the franchise. Like, yeah, you're gonna feel a little bit like, I'm sure he had like imposter syndrome at that point, right? Like we've all been there. We all know how it goes. I think that's what it was. I think that's why he did so much, because he was trying to like say, I'm not taking over this franchise. I respect everything that you guys did before me, and to show that respect, I'm gonna put all of your lines in my movie. It's like, I get it. Like I think it was just a little too much. I think but I think this is his first try. That's why I really want to see the next.
Mm-hmm.
I really want him to make another movie in the franchise. I think then he'll feel a little bit more relaxed. If the first one, if Romulus did well enough to where he feels like he earned his place, maybe then he can make that Evil Dead version of Alien, right?
Right.
So where it's like he's not trying to call back, he's not trying to be the first 2 movies. He's just being his own Alien. And that's the movie that I really want to see. This movie's good. Don't get me wrong. I enjoyed it. I own it. I've watched it a couple times. It's great. But I really want to see the next one. I really want to see him come into his own and make his own Alien movie without trying to incorporate the old ones too much. You know, like he did a good job. He did a lot of interesting, original things on his own, but like, you need to separate. You gotta, cut away the cornbread and just move on. And again, we already talked about Rook, but yeah, like I said, the whole Rook thing, the choice to use Ian Holm, I agree, maybe in bad taste. But then also like a de-aged Ian Holm is like at that weird uncanny valley thing. It's like the de-aging technology, like, yeah, it looks really good, but like there's something off on it. You know what I mean? Like you can tell there's something off.
Right.
Like when they did that with Carrie Fisher in Rogue One, right? It's just off. It's just a bit off. It's not bad. It's just off. Or Tarkin, the same
Tarkin
thing.
was worse.
Yeah, it's like it's I get it. Like you did a good job. Like it looks okay. It's just the brain knows something's wrong.
Yep.
And it's like, or like, De Niro in The Irishman. Like, okay, like, yeah, you might have de-aged him, but he still walks like a 70-year-old man. Like you can't fix that.
Oh, Samuel L. Jackson and Captain Marvel.
Yeah. Well, I thought they did a pretty good job with that.
He looked perfect.
Yeah.
Him trying to run as a 70-year-old man did not work.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just the brain knows there's something a little bit wrong there. That uncanny valley thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever. I know he wanted to do a lot of callbacks, and he did. That's, again, I just want him. The next one, I really want him to go on with that. I really want to see like his version of Aliens, to where like Rain wakes up in the future after being adrift for however long, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then so there's going to be like her version of Aliens. It'll be interesting. I hope he makes it up.
Yes.
We'll see. That's all I'm going to say about that.
All right. So I will go first for this one, for nicely tied bows in the 10. So I really enjoyed this movie. Did I enjoy having to sit and rewatch the brother or ex-boyfriend die 3 times that we watched in the theaters? No. But that being said, I think this is, like I said, solid movie. In my opinion, I know your opinion is a little bit different. It does go Alien Romulus, and then Aliens.
Blasphemy.
I know. I know. But I think you can agree this is in the top 3.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. It's a hard choice, because I like I like them all for what they are.
Mm-hmm.
Alien 3 gets shit on a lot, but I mean, it's David Fincher, man.
Yeah.
It's like his first major film. He had the vision, but they wouldn't let him do it because he was a new director.
Right.
And he was also like the 5th director on the film. Like it was a huge clusterfuck. It's amazing anything even got made at all.
Yeah.
But anyway, like having seen the assembly cut and seeing where his vision was going, I would have really loved to see that completed film. Because again, it's David Fincher. Like I thought he would have did a great job, but the studio wouldn't let him make that.
Right.
And I think that hurt him. But sorry, I'm getting off.
It's all right. That all being said, I will give this 9 nicely tied bows out of 10. How about you?
I won't go that high, I don't think. Again, it loses a lot of points for the callbacks. Like when it's like, when I start like, making a groove in my skull, when my eyes are rolling back again, like, dude, like, come on with these lines.
Mm-hmm.
It takes some points away. So I'm gonna go. And by the way, the correct order is Aliens 1, Alien 2, and then 3 is debatable, but that's 1 and 2 are non-negotiable. But anyway, I will give 7.75 nicely tied bows out of 10.
All right. Well, that brings us into the beyond, to the future, into a sci-fi VHS franchise entry.
Yeah, right. So we're gonna do this kind of quick and dirty here.
Just like I said, some of them are 1 or 2 sentence.
Right. Yeah, there's not a whole lot to explain here. Okay, now the rapper, I don't quite get what was happening here. Like they talk about how this is like, oh, the caught on video, this homeowner, knew he was getting visited by aliens at night, so he turned on a VHS camera to film him at night, and this is like the most irrefutable proof of aliens abducting people in the night that's ever been recorded, is the way it's presented. And then when they actually show the video, it does not look like that at all.
No.
It looks like a bunch of like blurred light, and then like, I don't know, maybe like an alien like slapping eggs in his face or something. I don't know what the fuck was happening, but that's all you see, and it's like in no way is this proof.
No. If I could vote as the best or worst for the rapper would be the worst story. Because it's garbage. But
yeah.
So yeah, that's the rapper, that's the frame segment, and this like house that everyone seems to like die in and all this shit, like his family had it. It didn't make sense. They had a lot of people involved with like UFO stories that are real people in that world. And then trying to say that this thing is the most irrefutable proof we've ever had of an alien is bullshit.
Right. Yeah. It's just, it doesn't, all of the hyping up for this video does not do the video justice, because it does not look like what they're describing, and it does not look like proof of anything. It looks like somebody's art project or something.
It looks like the alien segment from All Hallows Eve.
Right. Yeah. It's not good. Yeah. So, okay. Then we got our first real story, which is called Stork, which is kind of gives away the story. But it says it's like a bunch of cops who have lost kids or like relatives to this, whatever. We don't know what it is at this point, but they kind of formed their own like underground task force, right? And they've apparently finally found the ground zero for like where all these children are going or disappearing from. And so they essentially all band together to raid this house, and they fight a bunch of goofy zombies, and they end up finding out that the like ringmaster of this whole thing is a stork monster, and it's like stealing babies instead of delivering
and sucks the brains out of the people that create these zombies that
right.
can die and then come back to life.
Right. Yes. So that's the story.
Dream Girl is what if TMZ India
yeah. What if paparazzi was spying on a pop star, and then she was a robot and then malfunctioned?
Yes.
That's it. That's all you need to know.
Really is that, yes. Describe Live and Let Dive.
Live and Let Dive is like, what if aliens attacked a plane full of people that were skydiving?
Yep.
And then like they get attacked all the way down and then on the ground, and then
it becomes quiet place. Fur Babies is what if Justin Long was in the movie called Tusk and then made his own version, but instead of walruses, it was dogs.
Yep. That's it. Stowaway is like, what if you filmed a kind of sort of realistic depiction of what a alien abduction would actually look like? Like if
You
you
mean not communion?
right. Like if you like somehow got yourself onto an alien ship and then went into space on a completely alien ship, that's what it would look like.
And went through a warp drive without being in proper gear.
Correct. Yes. Yes.
That's pretty much it. Because I know you watched this when it immediately came available for
Yeah.
streaming. So what was your first thoughts? I know you love sci-fi, especially sci-fi horror. So
Yeah. No, this one was great. Again, these new ones that Shudder has been doing have been great. I mean, I think all of them have been hits so far. Some of the you know the individual stories are meh sometimes, but like overall, I would say they're pretty great. Like this is like definitely worth a watch. All of them are worth watching at least once.
yes.
But yeah, I don't know. Overall, I think it's fantastic. I think they're nailing it so far.
Oh yeah, it's let's face it, Viral was easily the shittiest.
Yeah, and that was what killed it. And then luckily, Shudder revitalized it. So
yeah, 94 and then 99. I'm looking back at our list because I want to see how and compare it to other VHSs to make sure I have the same thing in my head for I get to that point. But yeah, this is I watched this after talking to you, watched it with the wife, and I go, yeah, this I can see why Salem loves this. Like this is VHS sci-fi,
right,
but horror, some horror. And it was a fantastic entry. We weren't pigeonholed by the era, right? Which was nice. We weren't having stuff that's set in the 90s or 80s or something like that. So it was just way people tell an alien story. Kind of. Mostly aliens and robots, but
well, it's fun. It's fun having a theme, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, before it's just been the year. The year was the theme, right? It's like you do whatever you want. It just has to fit in this, year. And this one is like theme. Doesn't matter when. It's just the theme. Go.
Yep. Yeah. So, we'll like before we'll do our best story and worst story. Yeah, we filled out, and my best story and your best story is Stork.
Yeah, it's really just fun. It just comes off as like kind of one of those like anti-hero, like cops, going against the man to get, to do back alley justice.
Mm-hmm.
And then it ends up being zombies and a fucking stork. But it's done in like this bizarrely serious way. I thought it was great. It's just overall it's just a fun watch.
Right. It's like I said, to me, it's like the visual of the stork, Ratma. It felt like Ratma, but a stork. And I think, as far as the practical works, and obviously it was CGI, but it arguably looks the best, in my opinion, of all these entities that we see throughout all of them. And that's a big part of why I chose it for that story. It is, it's neighborhood to watch, but with guns and cops.
Right.
And then somehow zombies, and even just like, a fun FPS version of some things. They have they have the FPS scene in it, right? I would say. So I enjoyed it for that. Weakest story for me is Dream Girl. And it's not because it's not American.
Because you don't like super fiery goddesses. Admit it.
Correct. No, I don't like Bollywood dances.
What a shock.
I know. The Dutch guy who doesn't like to dance or get into music doesn't like the music one. Yes. It just felt out of place. Like when he's hiding in the closet and like there's a face in the gel, I'm like, oh shit. Like in my head, he was waking up a dormant or persuasive or brainwashed god versus a robot. I think a god being woken up would have been better than AI or a robot just to literally be the next Bollywood actress superstar. Um, it felt weird. You don't get to see a whole lot, and I feel like the fiery face effect is now the new thing because I feel like that's the same fiery face effect that we got in Late Night with the Devil, and that must be the new thing. I don't know. You know what I'm talking
Well,
about?
I mean, yeah, if somebody does it and it looks cool, then people want to do it.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is.
So, I mean, other than that, like I said, it is nothing to do with it being a different language. Like I said, it's just I didn't like it for that. What was your weakest story?
To me, it was Live and Let Dive. I felt like it was dragged on
Mm-hmm.
too long. You know, it would just like, oh my god, what's happening? What's happening? What's happening? Oh, what's this over here? What's this over here? Oh, aliens, run, scared, repeat. It was just that over and over and over again. There wasn't any like kind of development. It was just repeat alien showing up, scaring people, running, scattering, alien showing up, scary, run, repeat. It was just the same thing over and over and over again. And I don't know. It didn't really do anything for me.
And showing why the prices of orange juice is so expensive. All those oranges destroyed for this stupid segment.
Right. But yeah, whatever. I mean, it is what it is. I thought it was interesting when they were on the plane.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's interesting. But, like, I don't know. The whole skydiving thing just kind of felt dragged out.
Honestly, I don't feel like we got a lot of character development in there.
There's zero. There's nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting way. And I want to give shout outs. I know Stowaway was, written by Mike Flanagan and directed by his wife or vice versa. And I did a lot of reading on this movie after I watched it that a lot of people didn't like Stowaway in this. They said it's the weakest story. And they also said visually, and we discussed this before, I want to say it here too, is in my head, Stowaway felt like it could have fit on any of the other ones. Was it stylistically different? Yeah, it felt like an actual VHS movie though. And to me, that's what made it good, is that it held true to that VHS style. But I don't feel like anything else in these stories felt that way. They're all just like GoPros.
Well, yeah, but we're not locked to a year.
I know. I'm just saying though, like it felt like Stowaway felt in the visually the same as the others of the other series. You know what I mean?
Well, the other series were locking you into years because they could justify the tapes.
Right.
This one is the first one, at least in the Shutter versions, where they're allowing digital stuff.
Right.
So,
But
like the first one that the franchise did was in viral, and that was horseshit.
yeah. But I think that's why people are looking down on Stowaway, because it's not visually the same. It's not as clean as the other ones.
Well, it's also not like a goofy in your face, actiony explosiony thing. Which
Right.
like Live and Let Dive and Dream Girl have all those. Even Stork does, right?
Yeah.
Fur Babies has its big kind of dramatic reveals and all that kind of stuff, but it just feels a little bit out of place. I don't think it's bad.
No.
It just feels different than the others.
I was just trying to figure out why people were saying that was just
because
awful.
it's not awful. It's just,
No.
again, all of these other ones they're shorter and they're going bang, 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 right? They're like, look at this crazy things that are happening, right? And then this one is like kind of a slow burn, finding the alien thing, right? And then slowly exploring it, and then kind of trial and error testing things, and then, oh, look, it's happening. And it wasn't like a boom, boom, boom was happening. It was like, again, it's just like a slow progression of an interesting story, but not the boom, boom explosion, right? I think that, but that's what the other ones in this group were doing.
Yeah, it was a woman's journey to find the truth.
Yeah, that's sure. But I'm just saying, I think it's just a different vibe.
Yeah.
Just a different vibe. And I think people were probably like, ooh, fun, pretty explosions. Ooh, look at the butterfly. And then it's like, now you got something you have to actually think about.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't want to do that.
Yeah, and that's a shame because everyone, I don't know, maybe also people had high hopes with the names attached to it.
That's probably what it was. I mean, they were probably again, like, what are they gonna do? You know, fucking squish Midnight Mass into fucking 10 minutes? You know,
I
like
know.
they're not gonna do that.
No, no. I think they're both. I think Flanagan and Katie are good for that slow burn. It's
Yeah,
a thinking man's horror.
yeah. No, it's good. I do enjoy it. It is good. It's well made. It's interesting. It's
Mm-hmm.
the thing is that put up against the rest of these. The rest of these are kind of like bam, bam in your face right away, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I think it just feels out of place. I'm not saying it is out of place. I think just people watch it and they think it's out of place. I think that's probably why they call it the weakest one, and it's the last one.
Right.
If you would have started off with that one, it might have been different, right? Because if we're starting off with the slow burn, and then we go into Stork, you know what I mean? Like that would be a different cut, you know. And I don't know if I think it hurt it a bit having it at the end after all of these fast paced ones.
Right. I can see that. That makes sense. Like
Again, I don't think it was bad. I like when I first saw it, I didn't care for it, but again, back thinking about it, I think it was just because my brain was not in that mindset at the time. But the second time I watched it, thinking about that, I was like, no, okay, it's just a different vibe. It's just the rest of these are boom, 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 and this one is, you know, an interesting kind of, you know, dramatic exploration take.
Mm-hmm.
So where the rest of these are like, you know, people made into dog babies, you know, and then you go and then you switch into that. It's a hard transition for people.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah,
you know, that's like going from like Tusk to The Exorcist.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you're not in the same mindset. They don't belong back to back. You know, you can watch them back to back as long as you understand that they're very different.
Right. And let's face it, that really the worst segment is the rapper. So,
yeah, and again, I like they're hyping it up, and the way that they were talking about, oh, this, you know, this interesting tape, and this is guy, you know, whatever, you know, this is what he did, and you know, all the leading up to it was interesting, and then like the actual payoff was like, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what the fuck is that?
Who knows? So. All right. So, Salem, how many nicely tied bows out of 10 do you give VHS Beyond? I said, I'm looking at what we gave, you know, is episode 15 we did VHS.
Mm-hmm.
To get my thoughts together here. But what's your thought?
I'm gonna say 8. I'll say 8 nicely tied bows out of 10.
Yeah, like I said, you know, I'm looking at, you know, I gave 9 for the first VHS, 8 for a second. Viral was something we don't talk about. 9 for 94, 7 for 99. Yeah, this is a solid entry. And as long as they don't ever do VHS Viral again, I think this franchise will always have a showcase for short stories.
Well, I think they can do Viral again now. I just think when they did Viral, I don't think the people that made it understood the assignment.
No.
And then it was a bunch of just dumb shit like slapped together that was not good. Like none of it was good. Like none of those vignettes were good at all.
You like the Hispanic death cult versus skateboarders? Yeah,
right.
That's awful.
It's just horse shit. It was just all of them were bad.
Yep. And there's only 3 of them.
Yeah.
So, all right. So I agree. I think this is a solid entry. I will also give this 8 nicely tied bows out of 10. Like I said, I'm excited. If they can turn out good movie, doesn't have to be yearly thing. We don't want it to turn to shit again. But keep doing what you're doing. Finding these great stories. Maybe not tie it to a year, and do a theme. You know, creatures of the night, or classic monsters, or something like that, just to keep it interesting and fresh.
Well, I like when they do. You know, obviously they gave them. But I mean, not even necessarily aliens, right? Because not all of them are aliens. Like
sci-fi, though. Yeah.
Yeah, but Stork doesn't necessarily have to be an alien. It could be just a kind of twisted folktale type of thing, right? To where like it's always been around. It was just misinterpreted as the stork delivers babies when it was the opposite. Like Dream Girl is about a robot. It's not about an alien. So it wasn't about aliens directly. It was, I don't know what their kind of idea was. I mean, obviously beyond was the word that they used. I don't know what their idea behind it was. But yeah, I'd like that moving forward if they do stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm okay with the years too. I mean, they did a good job with those, but the years may be running out of years soon.
They're also pigeonholed to that era, and not everyone wants to shoot something in 1984.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
who knows? I like this. I'd love to hear the behind the scenes stuff for these movies, quite honestly, and how they choose this stuff. So, all right. Well, anything to add to this episode before we close it out?
Nope.
All right. Well, I feel like we were on the naughty list this year because of my poor choices of Christmas horror movies. Yeah, we're probably back for another week of holiday trash. I'm hoping that the week after next with the Nosferatu will be the palate cleanser we need. We'll see. We'll see. Now, I haven't seen any of these movies that we're watching for next episode, which is going to be Elves from the late 80s, your favorite era of horror movies. Schlock. Don't Open Till Christmas, which I believe is earlier 80s. And Santa's Sleigh, which is the most recent one for next episode. I haven't seen any of these, so I can't tell you.
I mean, I definitely haven't because I don't normally seek out Christmas horror.
Yeah. But remember, we watch bad movies, so you don't have to. And this has been Graveyard saying, have you checked on the children?
This is Salem saying, long live the new flesh.
Good night.